Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker is finally out. I have no idea how to feel about this movie. Forgive the lack of my usual green screen. I've got too much stuff on my floor and setting it up is a pain in the ass. So, the Star Wars sequel trilogy has finally concluded, and it wasn't good. I'm honestly weirdly conflicted about this movie because there were a lot of good elements, but overall, it was not a good movie. I mean, it wasn't a bad movie, mind you. It wasn't like it didn't ruin Star Wars or anything like that, but it was such a clumsily assembled story. And I don't entirely fault the movie for this. It's weird the way I've been trying to think about it. Because on one hand, this is its own movie, but on the other hand, this is the end of a trilogy, and it doesn't work. You are being too noisy. I've got to move that cat tree. Now, I don't know how much of this I can really fault J.J. Abrams for, because apparently he had created a script for Episode 8, and then Rian Johnson threw that out and made The Last Jedi, and that's a whole mess I'm not getting into, but if you're wondering where I stand on that, not a fan. This should have been one of the biggest cinematic moments of my life. It was one of the most hyped up movies to go see. The end of a trilogy of trilogies. And I was like, I had to be reminded, oh yeah, we've got tickets, we're gonna go see that later tonight. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. Endgame was such a big deal that it actually crashed Fandango when people tried to buy tickets. This one, there were empty seats in the theater, at least when I saw it. I'm trying to give the movie a fair chance. It's just so hard to see because, like I said, there are things that I liked about it. There were moments that were genuinely funny. C-3PO actually had a reason to be in the movie, and he's where a lot of the comedy came from. The action scenes were handled pretty well. Visually, the movie is stunning. I mean, it's a Star Wars movie, so that's almost guaranteed. Rey's powers. People complained about Rey being overpowered, and the movie actually kind of got away with it in this one because she started the movie training, and we're not sure exactly how long it's been since the last movie, so she's spent so much time training, which does save the movie in a few ways. Not all ways, but that is a very lengthy discussion to be had. But at the same time, there were these elements that were introduced that served no purpose. At one point, it looked like they were gonna die, so Finn looks over to Rey and says, "I never told you," and then he gets pulled in below some quicksand. And they never really bring it up again. It's like we never get confirmation of what he was going to say. The Knights of Ren, completely worthless. Yeah, they're in the movie for like one fight scene that just feels like the movie was just obligated to have them. If you cut them out, you'd lose nothing in terms of story overall. Oh god, and the whole thing with Palpatine was such an ass-pull retcon. I'll give the movie credit. It at least tried to give a semi-plausible reason for why Palpatine is in place. It's clearly a bullshit answer because Snoke's dead, so now they don't have a central antagonist anymore. Because Kylo Ren's clearly not fit to be a villain. Actually, speaking of Snoke, it's weird. Normally when you give context to something, it fills in some details, fills in some gaps. But in this case, Snoke gets some explanation to his backstory. So Snoke has gone from an ultra-powerful Sith Lord with no backstory to an ultra-powerful Sith Lord with no backstory that Palpatine just shat out. It is so clear that there was some kind of... I probably sound like a rambling mess. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to be straightforward, but it is so difficult with this movie. And I didn't go in there trying to hate the movie. I wanted to like it. I wanted it to be good. But it feels like, the way it was written, it feels like there's Force Awakens, there's a missing middle part, and now we're here with Rise of Skywalker. There are elements from The Last Jedi there that are like they have to acknowledge, like Luke being dead. The entire thing feels like it was written in spite of The Last Jedi. So you've got different narratives between different movies inside this same trilogy fighting each other. And that makes for a bad movie-going experience. I mean, it also doesn't help that the entire plot can be summed up as Palpatine's a thing again and everyone tries to kill him. There's kind of a scavenger hunt trying to hunt him down to the point where it's downright ridiculous. Like, there are directions that got written on a knife. Why is that a thing in a Star Wars movie? I mean, it's kind of like a friendly nod to Indiana Jones in that way, but at least if you enjoyed The Force Awakens, you'll probably enjoy this movie, at least to some extent. I kind of liked The Force Awakens. I didn't think it was a fantastic movie, but there were still things there that I enjoyed, even if it was largely a rehash of A New Hope. There was still some fun to be had, but there were just so many hanging plot threads and so many character arcs that didn't go anywhere. Frankly, none of the characters in this movie actually had anything resembling an arc aside from Kylo Ren. And his is already obvious. Even if you haven't seen it, you already know what it is. I mean, if nothing else, this gives a solid argument for why directors need to work together. This is why the MCU worked as well as it did, because directors actually had an overall plan that they communicated with each other. That did not happen with this trilogy, and because of that, we've just got this sloppily told story with missing elements that just got pushed around unnecessarily, ideas that don't really belong in the story. I'm speaking of the trilogy overall. It just, I mean, speaking of Spike, there's one line in there that kind of confirms that J.J. Abrams does not like Rian Johnson or The Last Jedi. They're dealing with some looming threat, and they ask, well, why don't we try the Holdo maneuver? And Poe's like, it's a 1 in a million shot. And that line serves no purpose aside from saying, fuck you, Rian Johnson. That and to cover up a plot hole, but I'd say just go see it to see it and draw your own conclusions from it. There are parts that you can still enjoy. I don't think that this really ruins Star Wars. You might not like it if you're a diehard fan, and I can understand why. I'd say the movie's okay. It's not like offensively bad. It feels like a Star Wars movie. The characters are there, the plot's there, the action's there. And if you just want to go see it for a surface level, kind of turn your brain off movie, you'll probably have fun. But I can't always turn off the critical part of my brain, and there are too many writing mistakes for me to thoroughly enjoy myself. But I'm a nitpicking bastard, so that's on me. You might still enjoy it. Oh man, if this is not the most conflicted review I've ever given. Still, whether or not you like the sequel trilogy or if you hate it, at least we can all agree Rogue One is pretty goddamn good.